Sure, Christopher Huff, Christopher, Huff.
And you are
The city tax assessor for the city of Portland.
awesome. Chris, tell me what this revaluation process has been like for you and your team this year.
So we started this project about 3 years ago. Council approved this in 2018, and we kind of got underway in the very beginning of 2019. The process started with a review of sales, the last 45 months of sales going back to April 1st of 2017. We sent data mailers to all property owners requesting information on characteristics of their home. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to let the truck go.
No, perfect. I completely get it. We sent data mailers requesting characteristics of information on people's homes. And for our commercial property owners, data mailers that requested income and expense information. All of that gets aggregated or compiled along with cost manual data, sales data, income and expense data, and from that we build valuation models, which in mass appraisal, those models then get applied to large groupings of parcels. Unlike a fee simple appraisal where somebody's out looking just at your home and only that, in mass appraisal, we're doing that on a much larger scale. So we're valuing thousands of parcels at one time rather than a fee simple appraisal. But the methodology is very similar between a fee simple appraisal and mass appraisal.
And just so I'm clear, when you say parcel, you're talking about somebody's property that they
Correct.
own, the land and the home.
That's correct. Yeah, your assessment is made up of two parts: land assessment and building assessment. Sorry,
No, you're
I moved.
No, you're good. And so the last revaluation was in 2006.
Correct.
So 15 years.
It's been 15 years since the last revaluation, and obviously the market today in Portland is vastly different than what it was in 2006, and that accounts for some of these larger increases in values that we've seen, because those values that were in place before were based in 2006 dollars, and obviously various parts of the city have increased at different rates. Everybody should be seeing an increase in their valuation, but depending on what part of the city you're in, that percentage of increase may be significantly higher than in other parts of the city.
Why was it 15 years, right? I think the state mandates 10 years for
It
every
does.
revaluation. Why 15?
It does. Part of that obviously is revaluations aren't the most popular project that a municipality has to go through, but there comes a point where it's mandatory and you have to do it. And I think we were at this point, which kind of kicked off this project. We were outside of the main standards that they require for the assessed values in a municipality, and since we were out of compliance with Maine state standards, we had to do this revaluation. I think it was critical at this point because we were falling out of compliance with multiple standards. Rather than a couple years ago, we may have been right on the edge of one or two of them, but we were still within compliance. But now being outside of compliance of several of those standards, we had to do a revaluation. One of the things that we built into this project is tools and technology to be able to do this in more frequent intervals, so we don't have these large wild swings in value. If we can maintain doing revals or updates of values every 3, 4, 5 years, I think everybody, the city and taxpayers, will be certainly better off for it, so that we don't have these 15-year large-scale time periods in between these big projects.
Yeah, I bet that's a little bit shocking to people, right, to see that their property taxes go up by such a large amount. I think you said, was it the average home or the median home that goes up 77%?
Exactly. So the average increase for the total city taxable valuation is about 77%. We've gone from a little over $8 billion to $14 billion with this revaluation.
So what does that mean? I mean, if I'm the average homeowner, which I'm not yet, but I was at one point here,
Yep.
What does that mean when the whole city goes up in value? What does that mean for me?
So the value to compare is what your individual parcel increase in value was. If your individual increase went up higher than 77%, which was the city average, then you should expect a higher tax bill than what you had previously. If your increase in value was under that 77%, then you should expect a decrease in your taxes than what you were paying last year.
This is going to sound like a stupid question, is it a good thing or a bad thing when the overall value in the city goes up? It depends on who you ask.
Exactly, and I don't know if saying it's a good or bad thing is the proper context to phrase that question. Valuations or a revaluation sets market value at a specific point in time. So the last revaluation 15 years ago, valuations were based on an April 1st, 2006 point in time. This revaluation sets these values at this point in time. I don't know that there's a good or a bad aspect of it. Other than the goal of the reval is to capture market value at that point in time, and in particular to make sure that those values are uniform and equal to every taxpayer, that everybody's being assessed by the same standard of value, the same standard of measure.
Okay, so this is kind of silly, and I'm trying to think back to the explainer that you guys had put together, right?
Yep.
Because this money, the increase in property value, it doesn't go towards the city budget, right?
That's correct. The city does not raise any additional revenue from a tax revaluation. If you think of the budget as a pie, the size of the pie doesn't change in a revaluation. What changes is how the slices of the pie are allocated to each resident property owner.
Okay, gotcha. So what's the benefit of a revaluation to, or is there a benefit of a revaluation to a homeowner?
There is, because obviously their assessed value is reflective of their market value for that point in time. But some of the value, in a revaluation comes into play when we talk about exemptions on a property. One of the most popular exemptions is the homestead exemption program, and the state legislature dictates that exemption is $25,000 of value, but in Portland, nobody in the last several years has been getting that full value because our ratio, the homestead exemption has to be ratioed by whatever the annual assessment ratio is. We have not been at 100% of market value in the city in over 6 years, and that ratio has gone down each year, which essentially means that an assessed value doesn't reflect 100% of market value, it reflects a different ratio, a different percentage of market value. Well, the homestead exemption, any exemption, has to be factored by that same ratio. So instead of getting the full value of the homestead, residents were only getting a percentage of whatever we were at in the assessment ratio for that year. As an example, last year property owners at homestead only got $19,250 of homestead value when they should have gotten the full $25,000. This year, everybody enrolled in homestead will get $25,000 of exemption because we will be back to 100% of assessment to market value.
Gotcha. So it is expected, as long as inflation keeps up, right, to slowly decrease, but that's why you do them in the smaller intervals of the 5 years so that
correct.
People maintain the exemptions and also the swings aren't as wide.
Exactly. That's exactly correct, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You know what? I mean, obviously, there's been some pretty strong reaction from people feeling like, you know, wow, my property taxes are going up a lot. You know, and obviously that impacts people who own a home that if they're a landlord, right? They might be renting out. We know we have a housing crisis in the city, and now there are people who are saying, boy, my rent's going to go up even more. What do we do about? I mean, I know that housing is not necessarily, you know, your jurisdiction, but is there something that comes into play with that when you know about kind of the situations and the crises that the city's facing on that front?
There certainly are different tax relief programs that are available, and certainly everybody should take advantage of any tax relief program that they're eligible for and that they qualify for. Yes. There was a recent rent control ordinance that was passed, which I think will help in that regard. But each individual property is unique in whatever rents that they're getting, or how they divvy those rents out to their individual tenants. But certainly, when property taxes increase on a parcel, you know, it's not uncommon certainly to have those costs passed along to renters, which can potentially drive up rents. And certainly, it's something that we are well aware of here in the assessment office.
Sorry, my brain is not as much on the revaluations as it should be, because I was shooting a cool story in Lewiston. I'll tell you about it in a minute. What have we not covered that you think is important to mention? I mean,
the tax relief was huge. Obviously, everybody should take advantage of tax relief programs that they're eligible and qualify for. The appeal process.
Oh, right. Everybody has the
Yeah.
opportunity to appeal
They-
their revaluation.
They do. The first step of the appeal process is an informal appeal with the revaluation company, and that entails just making sure that the data is correct and that the numbers are correct. Anybody can go online to our website to schedule an appeal. They can call a toll-free number, these appeals are virtual with the revaluation company. So Tyler will call them at the appropriate date and time that they're scheduled for, and have a discussion to make sure that property characteristics are correct, and to make sure that the value was appropriately assigned based on the property characteristics. The next step, after tax bills get mailed in September, property owners can appeal directly to the assessor's office for an abatement, and we'll review those at that time.
You expect to get a lot of appeals?
We do, yes. So far, as of today, there's over 1,000 appeals that are scheduled with Tyler, and we would expect the same number to be filed with our office after the informal appeal process.
Sounds like a lot of work for you.
It is a lot of work. Revaluations are, and when you have 15 years in between projects, obviously we're very busy right now. A lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, doing our best to get answers to everybody. But we're certainly busy right now, busier than normal.
The Munjoy Hill district was one of the ones that seemed to have the steepest increase in value.
Exactly.
Do you know why?
Well, market value. I mean, it really does come down to market value. Market values have increased on Munjoy Hill as a neighborhood, or the eastern end of the peninsula have increased more than any other area of the city. The peninsula in general is where we've seen the higher increases in value as opposed to properties off peninsula. Again, everybody's value has increased. It's a matter of to what extent. What was your increase in value opposed to your old valuation, opposed to other areas of the city that have also increased in value. And what we're finding is, again, the average being 77%, while those properties that are well above that average seem to be centered on the peninsula. But that's what we would expect, because sale prices in the peninsula over the last year have increased dramatically.
What is it that makes this is a really basic question, so I apologize for this, but what is it that makes a property go up in value, I guess, as drastically as in a neighborhood like Munjoy Hill? Is it the build? Is it the other buildings around it?
I think it's,
It's probably a whole host of things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in real estate terms, we call that desirability, usability, scarcity. Portland's a popular place to be. A lot of people, I think, want to be here. Obviously, some of the sales with COVID have somewhat of an impact on that. Again, we went back 45 months to April 1st to 17. So while certainly a small percentage of our sales were those COVID sales, it's the real estate market in general has increased exponentially over the last several years. Portland's a desirable town. People pay to live where they want to live, and I think you're seeing real estate prices reflective of the desire to want to be in Portland.